everyone. Welcome to this episode of Claims Never Sleep. I'm your host, Meghan Henry, and today I have a very special guest. I am joined by Rebecca Adelman, and Rebecca is just a force to be reckoned with. She is a practicing attorney. She owns her own law practice, which she's expanded to risk management and claims management. And she's just a woman who does it all. She's very forward-thinking, thoughtful. She's a thought leader. And it's just this entrepreneurial spirit and always had. And she's just pushed herself and just made it blossom. And I guarantee you're going to learn a ton from listening to her. And she's just going to make you smile. So with that, let me bring her in.
This is the Claims Never Sleep podcast, presented by Cruiser Mitchell, with your host, Meghan Henry.
Good morning, Rebecca. Welcome to this episode of Claims Never Sleep. I'm so happy to have you. How are you today?
I'm great. It's so good to see you. Thanks for having me. I'm doing great as we sort of catapult into the holiday season.
I know. It is upon us. As I was saying in our pre-recording chat, I am headed on the road later or this afternoon. Let's hope I don't get buried in holiday traffic. We will see. I've been keeping an eye on it. Hopefully the traffic gods are in my favor this afternoon. There's nothing like traveling on the Northeast corridor on Thanksgiving weekend.
Yeah. Good luck with that.
So before we dive in, I have to ask a little bit about your background. Okay. This is a real background, right? This is not virtual.
Yeah. No, this is my office here in Memphis, Tennessee. This is my background. It's got all It's got all sorts of, you can imagine, stories behind everything that you see, and paintings and sculptures and local work and my plant collection and stuff. So yeah, thanks for recognizing it. It's we spend so much time in our workspace that I like it to feel like home. And that when people come, like you, I want them to feel inspired and interested, and it's sort of a conversation piece too. So yeah, thanks.
You must have a really good green thumb though, because those plants look luscious.
I do. And
my plants don't look as luscious.
I kind of have a green thumb, but I also select, you don't see the details of them, but I select plants that are pretty hardy. Notice you don't see a lot of orchids around here.
as I look on my shelf of my orchid that
is just
I don't think it's going to flower.
Just a branch hanging out there.
It is just a branch, and the branch is withering.
That's why you don't see any orchids in here. You see big hardy green fig trees and things like that it would take me a lot not to have them thrive anyway.
But I love it because it gives a nice warmth to the room.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, I think too, what I've learned is that just generally as a as a lawyer, and now we're doing more on Zoom, is sort of how you show up. It really matters. How you make people feel about whether it's a podcast experience or a client meeting or an education thing, like. How people feel about the whole experience really matters. And I think it's a reflection of, there's certain things I value. I value a really, creative environment, right? I value, you can see it's kind of neat and orderly. Mm-hmm. But I value these are the kinds of reflects my values. So I like that. And my firms too. So
yeah.
Thanks. Yeah.
Mine is neat until you look in the corners and I have my kids stuff in this corner, more kids stuff in this corner. Sometimes there's field hockey sticks hanging out. Yeah. But they're over there by the door right now.
Yeah, I hear that. It's one nice thing about sort of having my own firm, and I literally live where I work. So my actual home is just about, I can walk to work. So even during the past years when now that work from home is more trending, and I've never not come to my office. It's been important for me to separate myself from my hockey sticks. You know what I mean? A little bit.
Yeah. I I have my own space in my house, and we do have that actual office space in Philadelphia, but I do prefer to work at home just because it makes life easier for me.
It does.
And my family.
It does. If I weren't so close, it'd probably be a whole different story.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or if I had little kids. I don't have any children, so.
Yeah.
I do have a child. He's just not a little kid.
No. Well, let's talk a little bit about you, though, because as you know from listening to this program, one of the first things I ask everybody is, how you got into this field, and whether it be claims or becoming an attorney, and you're kind of in both. Yeah. Like, not kind of, you are. But tell me first about, what was your path to law school? Was it something that you had planned on doing, you intended to do, or did you, like me, I didn't know what else to do. So that was the path I chose at some point. So I'm curious, what was yours?
Well, I appreciate that question. So, I've been a lawyer now. I'm in my 4th decade of law practice. In fact, just a 1-second sidebar. Mm-hmm. I've got a case pending at the U.S. Supreme Court. I'm about to file a brief today, in fact.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's not something you hear every day.
No. And the cool thing is I had to call up there, and actually Justice Ginsburg swore me in. And I got admitted there. So I had to call because I don't have my bar number for the U.S. Supreme Court, because it's not like you're writing it every day.
So I called
up there. I was like, what's my bar number? It was just, the whole thing is just really thrilling anyway, and they gave me my bar number, and I realized it was exactly like the day I called to get my bar number to get ready to file this brief was my 30th anniversary of being admitted to the United States Supreme Court.
Wow.
Isn't that cool? It's part of my journey, So anyway.
Well, actually, I'm going to now cut you off. We're going to talk about how you became a lawyer first, but are you able to share what this case is about that you're filing a brief on? Or
it's
can you have to keep it confidential for now?
Right now it's got to be confidential. It does involve a negligence case. I can say that. How's that for generalities? It involves a negligence case.
Was there a breach? Was there a breach of a duty?
No, there was not. I am defending it. How about that I'm defending a negligence case that involves, how about this? It involves a casino. That's all I can say at this point.
All right.
Anyway, it's really exciting. We're really excited around here. I'm filing an opposition brief to a petition for writ of cert. So anyway, that's what's going on. So that kind of brings you into present day, but also intersects my 30 years past, I guess. So when I was a kid, I think my journey was really a personal journey with like the encouragement and the support I had around me 35 years ago. My dad was, I come from a family of entrepreneurs, and I like to tell people I'm an entrepreneur with a law license, Mm-hmm. And my dad we have a family-owned business, and my dad back then was always a champion for women, really thinking outside the box. So like having him as my dad, blessed memory, having him as my dad, always encouraging me to think of either, professional pathways I wanted to take, creative pathways I wanted to take. Like it was like infinity in my dad's eyes. So when I got through undergraduate school, I went through a very, customary course, graduated from high school in my little small town in Michigan. And then I went to undergraduate school. I'm a Wolverine, a Michigan Wolverine. And I went to undergraduate school, and then I speak fluent French. So I studied French in undergraduate and wound up going to France to get a master's degree in economics. So I studied over there for a couple of years. And then I came back, and I was really like, sort of like you, like, I'm not sure what to do next. And I was young, I was in my 20s, and talked to my dad about it. And my dad said, if you're going to pursue a graduate degree, another graduate degree, let's be thinking about like, what do you want in your life? Like, what do you envision? And the law sort of came to me as as a way to, one, protect my own interests and be independent and take care of myself. Like, I knew if I became a lawyer and I could learn lawyery things, like that, I'd know how to sign a contract, I could buy a car, I could buy a home. And then sort of expanding that out, I could protect other people who might have, needs, or be, my community, things that are valued to me. And, just making sure that the people who need protection get it, so that, like, the law was going to be an opening for that. And then, a way to make a living. I felt pretty sure that if I got a law degree, I'd be able to take care of myself. I'd make a living and try and make a difference. So that's what got me to law school. So I went to law school, graduated, and then that was really my pathway. I enjoyed every single step of it. It was very intentional, very purposeful, met some just, much like you, I'm sure, like, just amazing people along the way that are still my friends and colleagues. And
yeah,
it's just amazing. And I love being a lawyer. I'm licensed in a multitude of states and just love it. I didn't necessarily like taking all the bar exams.
No.
I remember leaving my last bar exam and saying, that's the last bar I'll ever pass. All the rest I'm going into. So,
good joke.
Yeah, I don't know. No, it took a minute. So anyway.
So tell me, though, about what was your path into practice? Like, did you have, when you were, and I asked this from a standpoint that when I was in law school, I had an idea of what I wanted to do, and what I'm doing now is totally different from what I thought I wanted to do. So what was your experience?
Yeah, I'm interested to know, like, what you wanted to do and how you ended up. I'd love to, I'm sure everyone else would like to hear it. So my goal was to get a job. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I want to get a job, and I wasn't sure, back, 30 some years ago, there weren't a whole lot of women doing what I do, which I loved litigation. I love trying cases. I did all that. I followed that pathway in law school, more con law. I did a lot of constitutional law. I love that. But then I did, all the trial practices stuff. Like, I love to speak. I love to argue. I love to brief write. I loved all that strategizing around litigation. So I knew I wanted to do that, but I didn't know what. And so really, I just started looking for a job, and you know how things go, those little nudges from wherever they come from that lead you to where you need to be. So one of them nudged me down here to Memphis, where I had friends and colleagues, and, and I just was in Chicago practicing law. I got a job in Chicago back in the Midwest. I really loved it there, but it was, growing up in the cold was one thing. Working in the cold was a whole other story. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A snowmobile suit versus a business suit, like, no. So I couldn't stretch my dollar very far. Back then I might have been earning like $25,000, And so I came down here to visit folks, and one of my girlfriends worked down here, and she said, you got to check it out. And she worked at a law firm that had one woman partner. I met that woman, and she hired me and said, we need more women down here. Would you be willing to move? I picked got my little Pontiac Sunbird, 1986, moved down here to Memphis with my dog. And that was it. And I took an insurance defense position. That's what was available to me. So I got into insurance defense and was primarily working in medical malpractice. I was doing some general, insurance defense, some premises liability. And from there, that kind of defined where I was headed, in the sense of, like, you're kind of a public or private. So I knew I was going to be in the private sector. And then I was going to either be, defense or plaintiff, criminal or civil. So I landed in defense civil. Mm-hmm. And from there, that's kind of how my history. And then from there, started to hone my trial skills, and had incredible mentors, and just, the giants of the industry down here in the South, kind of being in a very sort of a mid-sized to small pond. It gave me accessibility, and I drew a lot of interest from others to help mentor me and help me grow. So that's kind of how I got into what I was doing on the insurance defense side.
Well, one, my first car was a Sunbird.
Here's to the Sunbird.
I know.
Here's to
And my dad got me a Sunbird.
My mom and dad got me a Sunbird. I love that Sunbird. I drove it till the wheel stem fell off.
Me too.
It's been like 2005. I drove that thing forever.
Yeah, and mine had a little sunroof on it, a 2-door, had a little sport. Like
I had a 4-door. I had a 4-door.
Oh,
yeah.
Thank you, Dad.
Great. What color was yours?
Blue, like baby blue.
Oh my God, I love this memory. I'm gonna go find a picture of that Sunbird and send it to you. I loved my Pontiac Sunbird. Anyway, how did you not to turn the tables, but tell me how you thought you were gonna, how it was and how it is.
Well, so my plan all through college was to go to medical school, and it was my plan. I had that plan since I was in high school, and I was on it. Like I was pre-med. I was a math major. I was also a psych major, and I did all the things. Took the tests, did the things, and it was at some point my senior year when everyone was gearing up for applications to med school. I pivoted and I was like, I don't know if I want to be an MD. And I don't know what my thought process really was on it. Maybe I was scared. I don't know. So I pivoted and decided to go get a PhD in neuroscience and pharmacology instead. And I thought I was like, I want to develop drugs. Like, I want to work for a pharmaceutical company. This is what I want to do. And that's what I thought that was the right path there. And then I started at GW, and I was in their program there. And not that this had much to do with my change in it, but I started, and when our first few weeks, September 11th happened. And that was a little traumatizing to everybody. And then as I started work through that program, I absolutely hated it. Like, I was like, this is terrible. I don't belong in a lab. I'm way too chatty. I like to be social, and everything happened so slowly. And I just was like, this just isn't working for me. Like, I can't work on something meticulously and almost robotically to wait for the tiniest little results in like months upon months. It wasn't working for me. I hated it. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to take a step back. Let me figure out my life and what I want to do. So I left that program. I took a leave of absence first because I wasn't definitely sure I wanted to put a pin in that. And I got a job for a consulting firm, and that was a perfect opportunity for someone in their early 20s. I got to travel a ton. I worked with a bunch of people my age who were just had graduated college. So then, we developed this really close friendship, the late nights and all. And look, we were not moving mountains. Like it was, but it felt like we felt like our jobs were really important. But it was a lot of fun too, just because I was with, people my age, and it was a perfect thing for me to do. But at the time, my mentor there was a lawyer, and I had never even considered being a lawyer because everyone else I knew who was going to law school was a history major, an English major, and I was like, I just didn't feel like I fit that mold. But then after working with this woman, I was like, yeah, actually, like, I could do that. Like, I could go to law school. And at the same time too, I was like, what else am I going to do? Like, what other job is there to be had for me? I knew I wasn't staying at this consulting firm forever. Like, I knew I needed to find some advanced degree. And I didn't think a master's in public health, which was like the sector I was in, was the answer for me either. So I was like, all right, I'm going to go to law school. And at the time when I was in law school, my intention was to go into intellectual property and do like patents type stuff because I had that science background. And then I soon realized, not long after into my first year, like, while I had the credentials to sit for the patent exam, and while I had that background, I was not a very strong candidate compared to some of my counterparts who had degrees in mechanical engineering. And I kind of was like, look, even though I can do it, I'm not as a strong candidate compared to these other individuals. so again, I was like, okay, maybe I should pivot, and so at that point I was like, I want to do real estate transaction work. And that was my intention. That was, I had a summer job. That's what I did at the summer job. They did litigation too. So I did some litigation there. But it was real estate transactions, really what I wanted to do. And then when I graduated, it was 2007, and there was not a real estate transaction job to be found. Like, my summer firm wasn't hiring. Like, they couldn't hire. So that was a blow, because I was like, that was usually you summer, and then that's where you get your full-time job. And they're like, again, because real estate transactions were not to be had, they couldn't take on people. So again, I had to pivot. I didn't have a job when I graduated. I was in a flat out panic, and I did that like e-discovery, contract attorney work until I found something to land on. And the things to land on was litigation, right? Those are the jobs to be had. So that was the job that I took, because I was not going to be a lifelong contract attorney, because that was way too stressful and boring for me. And not that that's, I mean, I have had classmates make wonderful careers out of that. It just wasn't one for me. So then I got a job at a mid-sized, insurance defense firm, and the rest is history. Now looking back, I was like, I probably would have been super bored being a contract attorney. Like, like knowing how I am, I'm like, I like that things are, you get different. Every file is different. And not that, I'm sure that happens in contracts too. So, but I just, where I am now, I'm like, this is probably where I was meant to be, even though, it was a winding path there.
Yeah. Well, what I love about your story is that, I mean, it just demonstrates, number one, what a journey of self-awareness that is, and like self-discovery along your path, and the ability to pivot. I mean, come on, as a litigator, like our whole life is just like, pivoting and being able to, kind of zoom out and zoom in, and zoom out and zoom in. And I think that that's what I really love about it. The other thing I'm just sort of observing is that, the pace of litigation, picturing you in a lab with things moving like the pace of a broken snail, and the pace of litigation, the pace of a law firm like we're in, I think is just, speaks to that need to, keep things rolling and moving, and a lot of diverse things going on in different points in the life of a case. It's just a lot of fun. So hoorah for your journey, and that you landed where you are, and good for you. It's fun.
Yeah. And I'm very happy that I have this science background, because look, one thing that I noticed or realized when I took the LSATs is everyone's like, oh, lawyers aren't math people. You know who does really well on those logic games? Math people.
Yeah, they do.
So I was like, what do you mean? And like logical thinking, like.
Yeah, that's cool. But plus, you can also help your children do their homework, which is something I couldn't do. Anyway.
Well, sometimes now it's getting a little harder.
Yeah.
But I do enjoy. I'm like, oh, it's like a refresher for me now. I get to go back and relearn all the things. I'm like, I can't wait till you take calculus. So I get to, like, my all-time favorite classes are calculus related classes. So, but so you moved to Memphis. At what point do you open up your own firm?
Yeah.
And then what is the fire that has you do that?
Yeah, fair enough. So I got down here, I took my great job, and, I'm a quick study. So I learned as much as I possibly could learn about healthcare law, doing healthcare defense work, hospitals, doctors, whatever. So you're talking about the 90s. And then I was hired. I had an opponent on the other side call me up one day, and he had a defense firm also. He might have been a co-defendant rather. And he called me up, and he owned a firm, and he said, you're really good. I have a whole portfolio of, healthcare defense work, and I need someone to manage it. Would you like the job? So for me, that was a real level up. And I hated leaving the guys who had trained me, but they were also happy for me, which is a testimony to great mentors. And then I took this other job, and there I really learned how to not only, try a case from start to finish and do all the things. But I learned how to run a business. My mentor, the owner of the whole firm, really taught me how to like the business of the law, which is a lot different than like the practice of the law. Mm-hmm. So, and back then, I started to see early signs of this sort of silver tsunami lawsuit stuff coming in. I was starting to defend healthcare claims in the senior living space early on in the 90s. And then we had a couple of really kind of key clients. Mm-hmm. And from there, I just sort of saw the future of what was going to be happening in senior living. This is where my whole entrepreneurial, mindset and spirit come in. That's really my fire. My fire is really about looking ahead and finding solutions to problems, and that part of my self. So I saw that this was going to turn into something soon. So I left that guy's firm, and just a great firm, and opened up my own. It's probably about 6 or 7 years into my practice. And I just, I had nothing, and I accept maybe some clients who, if I made the move, would come with me. Mm-hmm. Obviously I couldn't share any of that with them because of our rules of ethics. So I moved, I'm in downtown south end of Memphis. So I'm near where the Civil Rights Museum is, in this beautiful hallowed ground, this beautiful area. But 30 years ago, 27 years ago, there was nothing going on here, and I could rent the place for nothing. You know what I mean? Like an old worn out building. So I, walked around here looking for a place to rent and hang a shingle. And I think also one of the, fires that was lit was that, again, even back then, there just weren't a lot of women doing what I was doing. And I had this sort of entrepreneurial business mindset too, about not just building a law practice, but building a business, like a whole legacy and a different service lines, and risk management and claims management. Like I had all that in my mind way a long time ago, that was going to be important to be able to provide services along a whole continuum as a lawyer. And I wanted to make it accessible, and I wanted to be the first woman firm in the city of Memphis, and all that. And so I staked out to do that. And I'm looking down this way because I'm in this space right now. I'm in the same building, which is the Memphis train station, Central Station. So I'm in the same building, but in a different location. But for 25 years, I was just down the way. Mm-hmm. And I walked into this place. It had no floor at the time. It had already been probably had big, cobwebs everywhere. And I walked in and I found the landlord. I'm like, obviously no one's been here for a long time. I'd like to rent this place. And he said, "You sure?" And I said,
"Did you think this one through, lady?"
He said, "Sure?" I'm like 26 years old or whatever, 7 years old. And I'm yeah, no, I'm definitely sure that this is a place I can afford. And he said, "How big's your firm?" And I'm like, "It's as big as I am. There you go." And he said, "Well, I can give you a little bit of money to, build the place out." And I said, "I would really appreciate that." And in the same time, I was, then I was able to tell clients that I was leaving and, starting my own firm. And, thank God they came with me. They trusted me. I've been representing them for a long time in the space. Then I went about really building a business around healthcare and senior living. And, so one of my niches, did all those things, went to all the healthcare conferences, offered my education free, speaking engagements, writing stuff, back then, started a newsletter, to get some traction. There wasn't a LinkedIn. It didn't exist. Twitter didn't exist. None of this stuff existed. Keep that in mind. Instagram wasn't out there. Nothing. There was nothing. It was, you just got on a plane, you went to a conference, and you were on the agenda. And then hopefully you would, start to build your thought leadership. So that's what I did. And I think what drove me is my entrepreneurial mindset and, my empowerment of women and the whole thing just driven by an incredible foundation of my family, saying that there's just nothing that you can't do.
Yeah.
So that was it. So from there, I built my law practice, and we had this discussion when we first met. So, practicing insurance defense law a long time, you really start to see, you start to see where the gaps are. When you start to see your own trends doing these defense cases, you start to see where there are ways for us to actually solve to some of these problems proactively. So we can, so I started to get into crisis management. I started to get into risk management very early on in my career, and built some, programs around that. And if you go back and look at my old, I don't even know if it was called PowerPoint back then, but you know what I mean? You go back and look at them and I'm like, wow, that I even could do that was just amazing. And so I started to develop risk management solutions. So when I would see these problems on the insurance defense side, I had something to offer to say, let's not let this, people know me. This is like my motto. I don't like to let a good crisis go to waste. You know what I mean? We have to learn something from this. Mm-hmm. So I started to move down the spectrum with my service model and, then start to offer risk management. And then over the course of time, over the last 10 years, I have a little niche in doing healthcare claims management. So I just provide claims management services, but very different, very unique, really innovative, very proactive claims management services for a couple little groups. And that model is sort of a reflection of what's going on up the spectrum. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like we're able to, in the claims side of things, I think we've created really good systems and processes, proactive kind of ways we deal with events, incidences, potential losses, whatever it might be, that help set us up for success in either early resolution or, certainly early investigation to get to the bottom of things so we don't lose evidence, so we don't lose the momentum on something that happened. So that's what got me into the claims side of things, which then allowed me to develop even more sort of proactive risk solutions to sort of drive all of this to my goal is obviously sort of a zero risk.
Yeah.
That's my goal, So that explains it all, I guess.
All right, we're done.
We're done.
Yeah, great chatting with you. See you later.
Good luck on the road. Okay.
So what have you noticed right now are some of the biggest challenges that you're seeing in your industry?
That's a great question. So I think challenges that I'm seeing that are probably common to along the whole sort of risk spectrum. I think challenges I'm seeing are that, sort of we have a more savvy, more educated consumer out there. Mm-hmm. More knowledgeable, more access to information type plaintiff, regardless of their background, regardless of their history. People have a lot of exposure to a lot of things now. And so the idea of complaining or filing a complaint or, accessibility to, big, marketing campaigns from plaintiffs' attorneys, whatever it might be. We just have a different consumer we're needing to speak to. And that consumer has, regardless of even the industry that you're in, I think that they have certain expectations. And I think that the legal field, the legal ecosystem has had to respond to all of those expectations. And I'm not sure we are, I think one of the challenges is that we've got sort of a very traditional system of insurance defense and how we manage claims and the relationship between everyone, whether that's between the insurance defense lawyer, and then the claims manager, and then the insurance carrier, and then, there's a lot going on in that ecosystem, as you know. Mm-hmm. And then how we engage with a jury, that's more sophisticated. That seems to be a little more, it doesn't. I'm not sure if they're just more angry or more emboldened. I'm not really sure about the juries and all of that, what's happening. There's a lot of conversation around it. I like to steer clear of that whole social inflation defense verdicts. And I think that's all, I just think there's sort of underlying things there. And I think some of the challenges are addressing sort of a traditional model of how we deal with conflict. Okay. And the type of world we live in. Mm-hmm. And I think there are so many gaps in there. And I think that all this risk and all these problems and all these losses sort of live in the gaps that we've been unable to fill. I'll give you an example. Something that's really, a couple things. You'd be surprised when, after all these many years, and I challenge you to, or I invite you to rather, to talk to your clients about this. Any of them that have been involved in litigation, like what was their takeaway and how did they go and revamp systems, look at contracts again, redesign how they're doing processes? What's their corporate governance structure? Did that change? Like, what did they do in response to this one claim? And you'd be surprised that they would say, I don't know, my insurance company handled it. It got settled. What do I?
I'm not surprised. I think that
I just, I don't know. Like, I got called a few times. I had to do a deposition and but my insurance company handled it. That's why I have insurance. It's like, yeah, that is why you have insurance. I understand that piece of it. But where is the part of our ecosystem where we're all sort of collaborating together to use that crisis that cost everyone a fortune, the insurance company, the human wear and tear on your client's business, reputational damage, things that are quantifiable and things that are unquantifiable, losses that are unquantifiable, reputational damage, human resource problems. I mean, all sorts of things come from litigation. Like, what did we learn from those losses? Because it's can't just be here's what the indemnity reserve was versus this is what the defense reserve was, and we kind of got there, and then that's the data, and we're scot-free because we settled below what we thought we were going to do.
Yeah,
that isn't the takeaway. The takeaway isn't the data. The takeaway isn't the loss run. The takeaway is you had a crisis here that impacted your company and that impacts our whole industries, all of our industries. What did we do to get better? What did we do to actually take all these learnings so this doesn't happen again, or we can try and mitigate it? So that is, I think, one of the biggest challenges. Does it cause all these I don't know. I'm not a Nostradamus of, what's going on with jury verdicts, but I will tell you that that's, to me, where I've showed up to try and really solve to things and narrow all those gaps so we can learn. That's it. Doesn't matter what industry you're in either.
Well, and I mean, look, if we were to break it down to the simple level, okay, let's just say, insurance company claims department hires, attorney A to defend a case on behalf of one of their insureds. And upon doing that, the attorney, yes, you have a duty to defend that case, but you also have a duty to evaluate what risk was going on at that time. And you can take that opportunity to also then advise your insured, who's your client, as to, hey, okay, this is a situation that we are in at this time. We are going to resolve this situation and work through the situation. However, looking into the future, I'm spotting a few things that maybe you could do a little bit differently. Say it's even like a trip and fall. Okay, maybe there wasn't an incident report. Okay, well, in the future, it might be helpful for you if you have an incident report. I can help you with that. So we have, you kind of have to take a more all-encompassing role, not a role that is, okay, I'm just here to defend this case, close the case, move on to the next case. Yes, that is a goal. You want to resolve that case, but you also want to prevent future risk.
Yeah, and
future risk.
And to that point, envision a system where when your defense lawyer gets the assignment, right? They may have not ever even encountered who this insured is. Like, their relationship primarily is with the insurance company. I have recurring clients with the insurance company, right? But sometimes I just get insurance company calls me and we get a client we've never met before. And imagine though a system where the insurance company is actually also promoting, the claims manager is also promoting this collaboration, and the messaging across our whole tripartite group is, hey, look, we're not here just to, defend your claim or pay your claim or, have Meghan or Rebecca report to us until we get to the end. We're actually here to help, make you a better, improve your risk profile. And, so that when renewal comes or when, along the way, we can look and see that you've implemented certain protocols, certain different things in order to get to the root cause of what might have got us here today. And that we're somehow rewarded for that, whether, that the insurance company and our claims team is, in on it from the get-go, so that the message isn't just coming from us, it's coming from, because, when the insured hears from the insurance carrier, wow, we're going to try and improve your risk profile, which makes it better for you later on down the road. You can help reduce risk. We can hopefully mitigate claims, all of that you're also getting that vibe from your insurance company and they're bought into it. I think is really an important part of this conversation is how do we all collaborate together to address what we're seeing out there in terms of trends? And I think it all starts with that relationship and what's the intention of it? What is our messaging together? What's the strategy early on? What are we trying to accomplish? And if proactive risk mitigation and remedial work isn't part of like this larger action plan, it needs to be.
Yeah.
So that's how we've really, over the last 20 years, like that is really like we literally in our litigation reports as a claims manager, I incorporate all of that directly into all my communication. So
yeah, and it's an amazing resource too for, and have you seen though, throughout the years, and I'm assuming the answer is yes, like improvements, like by spotting, these potential issues and advising as to additional steps you can take to mitigate or avoid risk later, I imagine you're seeing a drop in those risks for those particular insureds.
That would be 100%.
Yeah. I mean, that's your model, right? Like
that's the whole point. I'll give you an example. I have hundreds of examples, but I'll just give you one sort of easy to digest example. And that is, next time you're with your clients again, I'll invite you to ask them this question. Tell me about your litigation hold and evidence preservation protocols in your company.
Yeah.
Okay, wait, hold on. I'll show you exactly the look you're going to get.
Yeah. Yeah. What are you talking about?
What are you talking about? And I don't care if it's a small company or if it's a big company or an organization. The fact that most organizations don't have a protocol for litigation hold, don't understand what triggering of it is, don't know what spoliation of evidence is, you can't destroy evidence. If you think something like that, they don't understand what a litigation hold actually is, when it's triggered, who their key personnel are that need to preserve evidence. And expanding out there. So in indirect answer to your question, many cases I've had are, where's the evidence? I get a records request, I get a whatever, and they're like, well, I don't know where the video is. It's like, what? You literally had a records request back, 10 months ago when you should have reported it in the first place that there was an event, which is another one of the challenges, I think, is just sort of, how our clients, their understanding, or rather lack of understanding, about how their insurance actually works, right? How to report a claim, when to report a claim, and I'm always encouraging my clients, boy, if it looks like something or it raised a red flag in your brain, like, let's get on it now, not 9 months from now when the video of the little boy jumping on the trampoline has been destroyed, right? Who broke his leg in 6 places. And now, and so the proactive risk strategy there is, let's talk about getting you a litigation hold program in place.
Yeah.
That has, and particularly in our high risk industries we represent, and in the claims management, like, that is just part of the deal. And to me, like, if I'm an insurance carrier and I've got this application, I should have on my application, do you have a litigation hold program in place? And then they would say yes, or they would say no. And you'd be like, no, well, let's get with Meghan or Rebecca or whoever, and we need to get one. Here's a video on what you need and blah, 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 and call these people, because that's going to help a lot in the event anything ever happens. So that is a real concrete example of how one thing that they do could save them. I mean, the kind of sanctions you can get on a evidence spoliation,
or a
negative inference in front of a jury. I mean, you can move a case, like, you could add 2 extra zeros to a case, and punitive damages and the whole works. So, anyway, that's just a real sort of specific example.
Yeah, and not to mention, like, it can save you so much money if that video could have great footage on it that's very helpful. It might also have footage that's unhelpful, but then you at least know it right away, and then
doesn't matter. Our job is that we're truth seekers.
Yes.
Whether or not it's good for us or bad for us, it doesn't really matter. It allows us to assess the risk and to take some move that's either gonna, we just need to know, we need to resolve it faster. It's really doesn't, for us, we're just trying to get to the truth. And so, but that's a great point. And, it could be great for us. So the truth is in our favor. But if we leave it to someone else to decide what was on it, it never works out.
It's never going to help. No.
Never. Zero chance. So.
And have you found, though, that you get any pushback from insureds or clients on this?
Great question. Yeah, great.
Sometimes people don't like to change their ways.
Great question. No, it is just a brilliant observation, because, yes is the answer to that. Here we are trying to help them, and they're like, you know what? We just got assigned by, just focus on your job. I have some of those clients who are just like, I can think of one off the top of my head, and who I'm like, I've had 3 or 4 cases for them. And I'm like, it's the same conversation over and over. I'm like, okay, did you put the thing up? Did you do this? Did you? And they're like, no. I'm like, okay, well, here we are again. But that's what my insurance is for. I'm like, yeah, your rates are going to go up, and they're probably going to drop you at some point. But yeah, I do get a little pushback. And the healthcare space, it takes a little more education and training, because healthcare seems to be more change averse than most industries. So trying to institute new programs or policies, it just takes some more time. They want to embrace it, because I think the impact in the healthcare space is probably greater than anywhere. And in litigation. So, but it just takes some time. And, this goes back to what our jobs are. Our jobs are to engender trust and confidence in the legal profession, to serve as advice. We have so many different hats we wear. That's that's a hat thing. Like
that's your hat.
See my hat.
It's a beautiful big brimmed hat. You're ready to go to the Derby.
So we wear multiple hats, and but they all sort of drive back to instilling confidence with our clients and trust in our profession, our legal profession, and that they know that when we're advising them about something, it's really because we're working in their best interest. And so as opposed to like pointing out some of their weaknesses, what we're doing is we're trying to get to optimize their opportunities to use the crisis as a way to improve operations all the way around. Yeah. Always, reinforcing the fact that, this doesn't mean you did something wrong. This means like something came up. So let's just take this opportunity to do something so we can avoid it later. And I'm sure you get that too. How many clients have said to you, like, this lawsuit's frivolous. Like, how could they even file it? I know. I'm like, oh, that is in and of itself a problem with our system. But it's the problem with the system, but then it's the benefit of like living in a free land.
Yeah. Years and years ago, so my family owns a restaurant in Connecticut, and years ago they always participated in like a town festival, like a lot of food vendors from the town, and all these things. And they decided, let's do like a hot dog. It's a hot dog restaurant. Like, let's do a hot dog eating contest. And I was like, okay. So you probably need to have everyone sign this waiver. And my brother was like, are you kidding? This is so much extra work. I was like, yeah, but if someone chokes and dies on a hot dog, like it's a minor inconvenience, but like I think you're gonna want to do this. And they did the waiver, but it was kind of like I had to push a little bit. I was like, I understand it's annoying to make these contestants sign this piece of paper that they feel like they're signing their life away, but like,
they want to eat 60 hot dogs in a minute, though. They're gonna have to.
I know. I remember the numbers never got as high as that one, but yes. Same to your point, like learning how to, over the years, I've learned how to sort of reframe that. Mm-hmm. Like, when hey, you're going to have to sign a waiver turns into, empowering someone to take control of their business. Like, I've just been around for so long and have engaged with so many thousands of people, some who push back and some who don't, that you learn sort of how to, like you are learning and have learned how to present that. You know what I mean? So you get the greatest opportunity at the first time you bring it up to get some kind of buy-in. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of ways to do that, but I think it's critically important, and it's a challenge we all face is that, what is the, how do you, making sure that we're, really tuned into any trends we see with our clients or in the industry, educating them about it, and then really trying from a claims management, from a defense side, on the insurance, whatever that whole ecosystem is to all get on the same page for the insured. Mm-hmm. And, offer, just get in problem solving mode, mm-hmm. all the way around. Yeah. And it's funny because I a few years ago, I talked to someone. I had them on my prior podcast, and he worked for an insurance company, and his role was, he was an engineer. His role was solely to go out to potential and current insureds and assess the risk from a construction, because it was mostly, construction type companies, a construction standpoint. And I remember and that's why he came on to talk about that, because I was like, yeah, this is yes, this is a perfect thing to be doing. Like, have someone to go in and look at the builds or look at the designs or whatever it may be, and be a point of contact to be like, kind of advise like, okay, well, we can mitigate some of the risk if you do this differently, and just kind of assess from an engineering perspective what the potential risk could be for them.
Yeah. And then offer solutions, right?
Yes.
I mean, the insurance company was empowering him to say, look, we, like I guess what you're saying is like a vulnerabilities assessment. Like, hey, this is where you might be vulnerable. Here's what you could be doing.
Yes, exactly.
And then the real follow-up though, Meghan, is, are they doing it?
Yeah.
So, on the litigation hold stuff, going back to that, a simpler example is, making sure I have a responsibility to check back in on them. Like, are you doing it?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Are you annually looking at it? If you want me to look at it annually, I'd be happy to do it, but you got to do it. You got to use it.
Yep.
You got to train your team. I'll do your training if you want, or have someone in there. But it's one thing to implement it. It's one thing to sort of adopt it.
Right.
And be like, yeah, thanks for the vulnerability assessment report. Appreciate that.
Thanks for your feedback.
Thanks for your feedback. I gotta get rolling on with my job now.
Got bigger things to do than listening to you.
I've got it. And then their first lawsuit they get, they're like, oh wow, that was on the vulnerabilities assessment.
So we're almost out of time, but I have 2 more questions for you before we wrap up. So what's next for you?
Oh, that's a great question. I am working right now. I got all sorts of stuff going on. I have, different along the spectrum. I've got different sort of businesses. I got the firm, I've got the claims management, and then I've got in the healthcare space, I have a solution in the senior living space, a business that offers solutions to senior living. So I've been focusing some time there. I think one of the things I'm engaging in is learning and implementing in my firm and across the spectrum a communication and a response program, like a CPR program. Mm-hmm. And because I really feel like engaging with people in advance, if we know something's going on, that organizations adopting, whether it's candor programs or whatever it might be, particularly in healthcare space, I think is critically important in the environment we're living in. So kind of showing up strong there and learning more about communication and response programs. And then so I'm working on that. And then, just more, creating more innovative solutions in the claims management space. In my office, if you were here, you'd see we've got this big whiteboard in our office, and on the whiteboard are all of our like really cool defense strategies. Like every day we come up with something new, like, oh, this is something that the plaintiff brought up in a case. How can we respond to this? And then we'll all sit around a table on our Monday huddle and we'll be like, oh, let's file a motion to do X. Is there a rule that we can do this? So we have this sort of whole board of, our greatest lawyering ideas. So I'm going to be working some on that and probably turning that into something. Stay tuned for the something.
Stay tuned. Well, yeah, I feel like I want a follow-up on what's to come, and I want to know what happened with the Supreme Court.
Yeah. That's
you got to put a pin in those 2 things.
Well, I will circle back with you, and this has just been just a really great experience. Your Lincoln Lawyer thing is just so great, by the way, and all the content you push out and the creative ways that you are so relatable. I can never picture you in a lab. Just so you know, that idea of you in a lab has just got me cross. And I'm so happy you are where you are, doing what you're doing, and just contributing so much value out here as a lawyer, as a podcaster, like the whole deal. So you are real. You're very special. This has been a fun hour for me.
You're filling my cup today. Thank you for filling my cup.
You're going to need it when you hit the road later is what I'm thinking.
Oh, I know.
You want to add a little bit of bourbon to your cup later.
Got New Haven pizza on my my endpoint, hopefully. So one last question for you, Rebecca. So knowing what you know now, looking back, what advice would you give your younger self?
Oh, easy. Sleep more. That's it. Yep, that's it.
Sleep more is good. I think one of the things I would also talk about
prioritize. I know that's
more, relax more, and like be better about skincare when I'm younger.
Oh man, skincare, hair care. Yeah, I know that wasn't quite what you were.
No, that's
the gem.
Whatever advice you would give your younger self.
Prioritize sleep, girl, is what I would do. And that would be it, because really doing 100%, 150%, showing up every day to make the most of life, you gotta just, you need some rest. So that's what I would have done. And I do that now. Sleep's like my number one priority.
I got to get on that wagon. I'm not great about sleep. I'm still a burn the candle at both ends type mentality, mostly because my favorite time of the day is when everyone is asleep.
I know.
And I get that quiet time for like 1 hour, and I feel at peace. Like I'm like, everyone's good, everyone's asleep, and no one's asking for anything. And it's just I feel so much calmer, and that's my time. That 1 hour. That's when I watch Lincoln Lawyer, or currently it's a lot of Christmas Hallmark type movies. But it's my time.
I was a mom with kids, with my son young like that, where my days were, and then finally he would go to bed, and it was like I was just like, you could have that one big sigh, like, oh,
yes,
that big sigh, like like you almost have to say it out loud, like, oh, it's done. You finally, you run the little, you run like the move, the ninja move, and you get out of your kid's room without them waking up, and everything's good.
Like roll out on the floor.
Roll down, you make it out, and you're like, oh, now I have the hour. But the beautiful thing is, like, you're prioritizing that. So, when they get older, and you can carve that hour out while they're still awake, or you can get in bed because you've had your hour to yourself, so you can go to bed. It really is. It's been a game changer. It really is like the elixir for me. Yeah. So
I love it.
Yeah. So anyway,
right. More sleep. More sleep. Well, Rebecca, thank you so much for joining me. It was an absolute pleasure. And I can't wait to have you on again and hear more about where things are going and where they're at. Let's pin that for a few months from now, because I am curious to hear what happens with your brief.
We will, and me too. I want to hear about all that's going on with you too. So,
and I hope you get to argue. I
know. Well, if I get to argue, it means I've lost this part of the briefing.
That's true. I guess
it's sort of bittersweet in many ways. I want to win, but we were just talking in the office. We're like, I hope we can go argue, but that would mean we've lost.
Yeah,
so, but anyway.
Yeah. Well, of course, for all our listeners out there, if you like what you hear, please like and subscribe to Claims Never Sleep. You can find us on your favorite streaming platform. You can also find us on YouTube. Thanks for tuning in.
This is the Claims Never Sleep podcast, presented by Cruiser Mitchell, with your host, Meghan Henry.